Welcome, everybody, to the Nations Conspire channel. Anytime truth is mentioned in the mainstream media, there's got to be something behind it. That's what we always have to remind ourselves. And when the mainstream media starts bringing up cloud seeding and admits that cloud seeding is real, we should start saying, well, why are they actually admitting to this finally on the news? And that's exactly what just occurred in the wake of everything that happened in Texas. Now, there's a lot that goes into what occurred in Texas. I would assume that 90% of the population is suspicious about what happened, and possibly 75% believe that cloud seeding and geoengineering was responsible. Now, there's theories out there about dams being opened. There's also the theory of wet surface air coolers being used, and it's likely many things were possibly used. But we all know that geoengineering and cloud seeding is 100% real. So we have to look at why are they bringing attention to this? Is it because so many people out there are now actually aware of cloud seeding? Well, that might be part of it. But if you read between the lines and you watch the news clip that I'm going to play for you, your mind will start seeing what exactly they're trying to do. They're admitting to cloud seeding, but they're also admitting that cloud seeding is minuscule, that it could never cause any type of horrific event like the one that we saw in Texas. And on the flip side, they've actually created a scapegoat who they are using in the mainstream media, the CEO of a company called Rainmaker, to educate people on cloud seeding. So this is a situation where we could actually get people to start using their brains, especially Democrats, because if Democrats are finally going to see, and I hate to say Democrats and Republicans, but really this is what we have to start looking at these sheeple as, right? They identify with their party, they're communists to their party. So Democrats who are so anti-Trump, who wake up every day, the first thing they think of is Trump, they're so sucked into the psychosis that you and me should be able to talk to them about cloud seeding. We should be able to show them, hey, look, they're talking about it on the news. It means they have the ability to engineer the weather. But the problem is when news stories like this come out, they're already being programmed into thinking that it's minuscule, that it's literally the same as a small crop airplane flying above and watering crops. That's what they're trying to convince people of. So we need to be able to start showing people, look, geoengineering is real. And we also need to point out the fact that they're giving attention to this and debunking this because there's something bigger at play here. And it's not the company Rainmaker. It's the people who are behind companies like Rainmaker and the real people who are responsible for geoengineering like Darpa. So let me start with this before I play this news clip for you. Newsweek has an article. Map shows where cloud seeding takes place in Texas. Never thought I'd see the day where your own government is admitting to cloud seeding, right? This is where cloud seeding takes place in Texas. So we all should use our memory banks here and we should put this right in there. Anytime they tell us that there's a drought, we should say, well, why doesn't the government use our tax money and cloud seed so we don't have droughts, right? Those are some of the things that people who critically think should be saying. But of course, we live in a world where nobody critically thinks, right? But here is Newsweek, which is a major publication, showing, hey, not saying, hey, cloud seeding's real, we were wrong. All the articles we put out there saying that you can't manipulate the weather, you can't control the weather, you can't make it rain. Oh, well, we never said that. No, they said it a million times. Well, now they're just coming out going, map shows where cloud seeding takes place in Texas, right? So they say cloud seeding operations have covered 1/6 of Texas, spanning approximately 31 million acres across the northwest, west, and south regions of the state as of 2022. And it goes on to say why it matters. Weather modification has become entangled in political debate. This should not be a political debate. Democrats should look at this and say, oh, it's real now. We know that we're living in a narcissistic society, so most of these people don't want to admit they're wrong about anything, even if you showed them. We went and dug up the caskets up at the Hook at Sandy and showed them that there's nothing in it. They still would say, oh, you're just making it up. Oh, this isn't real, because they don't want to admit they're wrong. And the same with the conservatives. They don't want to admit they're wrong about Donald Trump, or they're watching him build out the AI governance of the New World Order, right? These people just refuse to do it because they don't want to look like fools. They'd rather believe in a lie than admit to being wrong. But you have this story where it says weather modification has become entangled in political debate. So they're pretty much, by saying that, they're saying, well, it's a real thing, but they're debating about, how it's being used or where it's being used. So we've now admitted in the mainstream media that weather modification is real, okay? So no more of NOAA trying to debunk us. No more of the government saying can't manipulate the weather. How about no more silencing people who talk about these topics? Oh, that won't happen because, of course, they want you to think it's just something that's minuscule. It can't be done on a grand scale. They don't talk about how they did this in the Vietnam War, Operation Popeye, and used it as a weapon, and how they've been using it as a weapon against civilians all around the earth. And that doesn't just include hurricanes. It includes tornadoes. It includes creating earthquakes using some of the Tesla technology that I've talked about in the past. So recent events such as deadly flooding in Texas Hill County and subsequent political commentary have once again brought the topic into the fore. Officials and experts have attested that weather modification efforts are incapable of controlling severe events like hurricanes or large-scale floods, with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration having previously issued fact checks dispelling claims, of course. So that's where they go with this. That's what we're going to see in this video clip. They're going to admit that they can make it rain. So number one, they should be held accountable anytime there's a drought. Instead of our tax money going to a pride campaign or whatever the crap is they tell you our tax money goes towards, it should go towards, because the most important thing in life is food and water, right? So we should never run out of water if they can make it rain. Now, obviously it's chemical rain, but you get my point. We should never run out of water, and we should never have any droughts, so we should never run out of food. And food prices shouldn't be astronomical if we can make it rain, because it means we could always make things grow. But don't forget, they're also blocking the sun, which is another thing they haven't admitted to just yet. So the story goes that they have out there circulating is talking about a corporation called Rainmaker, who had flown in the air and cloud seeded 2 days before the event on July 2nd. So everybody online is in an uproar. They're saying, look, there's documentation, there's proof. These people were up in the air. They were flying their planes. They were cloud seeding on July 2nd. And then suddenly on July 4th, we have this torrential flooding that occurs. Now, they'll tell you in this news clip you're about to see that if they cloud seed on June 2nd, or July 2nd, excuse me, that doesn't mean that it would rain on July 4th. There's not truth in that statement that they're going to say. We all know that they cloud seed ahead of time, and then these storms actually occur. And you're going to hear the Rainmaker CEO talk about how he's not responsible. He's making the rounds right now saying he's not responsible. They're not talking about who backs Rainmaker, the company. They're not talking about who has authority to actually be up in the air and spray chemicals, because obviously regular civilians don't have the ability to do that. If me or you got a plane and decided we wanted to fly up in the air and dump shampoo on people, guess what? We'd be arrested for it, okay? So there's a lot that goes into this, but look at this propaganda that they put out, admitting the cloud seeding, but of course trying to make it seem minuscule on NBC National News.
You might have seen posts or videos connecting cloud seeding to what is happening in Texas. And then earlier tonight, the CEO of a weather modification company confirmed that planes in Texas did release silver iode into the atmosphere 2 days before the floods. But he also explained why he says scientifically it does not mean that the two events are connected. Watch this.
We're talking about like sub-centimeter amounts of precipitation, be it in snow or rain from every event, which in aggregate can mean hundreds of acre feet, which is very consequential for farmers and ecosystems, but cannot come close to causing flooding unto itself.
And NBC News climate reporter Chase Kane joins us now. Chase, any conspiracy always starts with like a thread of truth here. Can you explain the science? Like, what is cloud seeding, first off, and how is it being used in Texas?
Yeah, so cloud seeding is really this idea for farmers of like, hey, there's some moisture up there in the clouds. Is there a way that we can get it out of the clouds down here to the surface to help farmers? Because water vapor that's in the air needs something to grab onto, which is often like smaller than the tip of a pen. So you're thinking like pollens, particles of pollen or dust or even air pollution. So you see this graphic here. Basically what they do is they fly planes up there to give the water vapor something to grab onto. So it's a combination of silver iodide and salt, actually. And so the water vapor forms around that. Eventually it gets heavy enough and then falls to the surface of rain. So when that happens, we're talking really small amounts of rain. In fact, scientists have been debating for decades whether or not this is actually very effective to do. So even when it does work, Gotti, we're not talking about a lot of rain, certainly not the amount of rain that they saw in Texas last week.
And the timing of it, 2 days before, I mean, you know, again, anybody online that seems to be an expert these days would say, well, no, this is what, you know, started the flood or possibly like supercharged the soil so it was hydrophobic. Like, well, take us through the timeline here.
Yeah, that's really important point, Gotti, because this cloud seeding, it works within like 15 minutes, half an hour, maybe an hour, and then that's it. So that was done 2 days before. So the CEO is saying this other scientific research establishes that cloud seeding isn't going to trigger something like this, certainly not 2 days after they were doing it. They were only up in the air cloud seeding for about 20 minutes because, again, it's targeted to a pretty small area of land, which was not even over where the worst of this flooding was, Gotti. So we're talking 30 minutes to an hour, certainly not 2 days in advance.
And I mean, cloud seeding is human-caused climate change on a very micro level.
So this is your guy. This is your CEO of Rainmaker, Augustus Dorico. And you can even see in a video that's entitled, We Control the Weather. We can control the weather. He's wearing a Jesus Christ shirt, even though, of course, we could all have debates about the depiction, the image of Jesus Christ. And he's talking about in that video, even mocking the Bible, but pretending to be Christian, talking about how man should have the ability to do these things and control these things. So this guy is a scapegoat that they're putting out there. He's going on television. He's saying that we didn't do it. He wants everybody's attention to be on him. And that's because the government wants your attention on him and his corporation. And when he sits there and he talks about the chemicals they use, we should also keep in mind the barium and aluminum that they dust on us every single day. Okay, these are hazardous materials that are dumped on us from above. Regular civilians don't get this type of clearance. So this guy, okay, doesn't have this clearance. He didn't say, hey, I'm starting a company and I'm going to go up in the sky and make it rain. And I'm going to make my ex-girlfriend miserable. And I'm going to go cloud seed over her house so it rains on her house every single day. How would a regular person have the ability to be able to do that? They wouldn't. It doesn't matter if you have the funding to do it. You would need the government's permission to do it. They control the airspace, okay? Doesn't mean you can't get an aviation license and fly a plane, but there's a lot of regulations that go into it. And to cloud seed, we all know only the government is allowed to do that. But they want you to think that some guy could just start a company, and of course the company is backed by who? Peter Thiel, right? Peter Thiel, best buddies of Donald Trump, the PayPal founder, the man who's responsible for Palantir, the technology that is spying on you and is going to eventually kill all of us for the most part. He's the one who's responsible for backing this guy's company. So you think this guy just came up with the idea, and Peter Thiel, who works in the government and with the government, has contracts with the government, just said, hey, I think it's a great idea. Make it rain in these areas in Texas because they have a lot of droughts, and I hope that they grow flowers there. I'd love to see the wildflowers in June in Texas. Please, I'll give you $100,000 to go make it rain in those areas, right? You think that's why? That's the purpose? That's what they want you to think. Well, these guys are cloud seeding because they care about the environment. They want to help with droughts, right? Every time we hear about a lake drying up, a reservoir because of climate change, we could obviously use this narrative and say, well, why don't they cloud seed over that? And we never hear that. And this is all about getting your attention and your eyes on some of these corporations, but not who's behind it. These are paper corporations. That's what Rainmaker is. It's a paper corporation. In other words, it doesn't really exist. These are all DARPA deep state fronts. Okay, just like I discussed recently, nobody's suspicious about how we now have 4 new lieutenant colonels in the U.S. Army with no training. We have the CEOs, the CTOs of Palantir, Meta, OpenAI, Thinking Machines Lab, who are just given government clearance and authority, right? Or how Peter Thiel has a company that's allowed to cloud seed, or Bill Gates has a company that's allowed to block the sun. Who's given these people authority to do that? Well, of course, they're all just doing it in the name of corporations trying to help humanity. But these are all military operations carried out by DARPA, because DARPA is responsible for the cloud seeding, and DARPA is responsible for what you saw in Texas, and DARPA is responsible for what you saw in Lahaina, and DARPA is responsible for what you saw in the Carolinas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So you're seeing a scapegoat presented to you because the pushback on social media has been major. Almost everybody is talking about geoengineering. It's not uncommon anymore, and a lot of that is because people like us have been screaming for years and years and years. And even though most of us get deleted and terminated, we get the seeds in people's heads, no pun intended, with cloud seeding. And then they start to see suspicious activity and they start to say, you know what? I had heard about that thing, and I heard about that, and I heard about that, and I remember seeing this, and boom. Suddenly, there's a mass awakening, and we're starting to see it creep in a little bit. But what they're going to do is try to hold back and pull back and say, okay, cloud seeding's real. But these people who say that they can flood an entire community out, they can make 30 feet of water in 10 seconds, those people are conspiracy nuts. All it does is just sprays a little spray from the sky, and, any company could do it. The farmers are the ones who want to pull the moisture out of the clouds. Huh? Did you hear the scientist on NBC? The farmers want to pull the moisture from the clouds. Okay, so you see where this is going. You see how they're going to start using and talking about cloud seeding, and then just kind of pushing it to the side. Say, hey, what about all these theories about cloud seeding? What about cloud seeding? What about cloud seeding? Well, it is real. Oh, it is finally real. After you've told us we're all tinfoil hat wearers for 20, 30 years. Yeah, it's real, but it's not what they say. It's like spraying, Avion water in the sky for a couple of minutes. Oh, right. And we're supposed to take them at their word. They expect you to take them at their word. So according to the reports that are out there, this is what they're circulating. They're talking about in the mainstream media. They're trying to debunk it. According to NOAA, the weather modification filing dated February 25th, 2025, Rainmaker was under contract to perform cloud seeding flights in the Trans-Pecos region of Texas from March 15th, through October 31st. How convenient. That'll fly right through Samhain, their favorite day. I'm sure there'll be a massive weather event that day as well, because it seems to be their their choice of sacrifice these days. And the contract is circulating online, and everybody's paying attention to the contract. These things are only out there if they want you to see these things, right? How would we get access to a contract where, you have a cloud seeding company called Rainmaker talking about cloud seeding, and then you get access to the information about July 2nd cloud seeding? This is a government op. This is bigger than Rainmaker being responsible for it. And I mentioned earlier, there's probably more at play here because this flood was so catastrophic. There's probably more at play than just geoengineering. We're talking about dams being open. We're talking about, like I said, things that no one discusses, like wet surface air coolers being used, being able to use water vapor, etc., to create a perfect storm, so to speak. And this is the other thing that's out there in regards to these companies that are getting funded. $25 million in new funding as drone network expands. Okay. In July 2025, Axios reported that Rainmaker had secured $25 million Series A investment round led by Lower Carbon Capital. Other investors include Starship Ventures, Long Journey Ventures, and prominent Silicon Valley technologists Gary Tan and Naval Ravikant. The CEO, Augustus Dorico, told Axios that the funds would scale Rainmaker drone operations, automate forecasting software, and grow a team of atmospheric scientists. So think about where we're headed here. We hear the government telling us, well, we're going to stop clouds, we're just going to stop geoengineering, right? So we don't see airplanes in the sky leaving giant trails behind it. We know that's bullcrap. They're never going to stop. This is the weapon that they've been working on, mastering to use against us. This is why they brag. Well, I don't know if they openly brag, but we know they brag behind our back. I mean, they have the Air Force document. They always show you, right? Weather, owning the weather, 2025. Weather warfare is a force multiplier from the Air Force. Okay, they're not going anywhere. But we're going to start seeing an uptick in drone activity and drones being used for cloud seeding. And the question is, who has given any of these corporations, these tech companies, who is giving them carte blanche to the air, right? We're being told that big tech companies are putting all this money into cloud seeding and going up in the sky. This is where the people should unite. Democrats, Republicans should just go, I don't care what your political, I don't want them manipulating the weather. I wanted to go to the beach that day. I'm trying to farm in my backyard. I'd like to see the sun instead of gray skies. Isn't there all common things that we should all get along on and agree on, right? So when you hear these tech dorks, these guys who are getting promoted as lieutenants in the army without any training, are getting the ability, they're backing companies like Rainmaker when they're fronts again for DARPA, but they're working hand in hand with DARPA. And they're doing these things. They're out in the open telling you that, hey, we're going to be up in the sky with drones and all these other things. Who gave them the ability? Because if we want to shoot them down over our home, guess what? We go to jail. If you have a drone flying over your house and it's a drone from one of these corporations, and you shoot it down, you're going to pay a fine and you're going to pay for a replacement and you could be in prison. It's a felony. Remember they told us when the drones were flying over New Jersey, right? Everyone's going, what's going on? We're getting no answers from Big Brother. People said, I'm going to shoot them down. They go, if you shoot them down, the government just comes out and says, hey, if you shoot them down, you're going to pay, you're going to jail. What? Huh? How are we allowing this to occur? How are we the airspace should never have been allowed to be, taken over by the government in the first place. They should never have been allowed to say, hey, we're taking over. But again, we could say that about everything, right? Social security numbers, driver's licenses. We should never have allowed them, or at least, our forefathers, the people above us, generations above us, grandfathers, should never have allowed it to happen. But this is what we're dealing with now. Because all the generations that allowed them to keep pulling and pulling, right? Give an inch, take a mile. Well, they've taken about 666 miles at this point, or I should say 6 billion, trillion and 66 quadrillion miles at this point. Okay, you get the point. So now we all have to deal with this around us. They have, you pay taxes on the land that you live on, even if you own the property. We're sitting here and we're looking around and we're going, how much more can they take? Well, there's still a lot more they could take. Because when they implement all this technology, these dorks implement this technology, then they're going to have full control over all of us. And that includes our voices. And that's the most important thing that we have, our voices. The ability to speak back and wake people up could take their control away. And that's what we have to focus on. So we have them talking about cloud seeding. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to talk to people and say, look, don't care your political affiliation. I'm sure you know somebody that says cloud seeding's not real, geoengineering is not real, chemtrails aren't real, right? We still see these stories about chemtrailing every day. Oh, that's not real, it's not real. Okay, so when they're telling us that cloud seeding is real, okay, so what do we see in the sky when they cloud seed? Well, we don't see it. What do they go up there with tweezers and pinch a cloud and the cloud farts out rain? That's what they make it sound like. They don't bring attention to, oh, wait a minute, okay, we're saying cloud seeding's real. Okay, so how does that happen? Oh, well, we drive up in the sky and those white lines come out behind the plane. Oh, they leave that part out, right? This is where we need to get into people's heads and talk to them about this stuff and make them realize, look, they're telling you that they could just do a little bit. Well, guess what? They tell you that all the time. Oh, well, we don't do this, right? Remember when they told you all you had to do was go and get vaccinated once? You'd be able to be free again? And then they said, oh, well, you got to get like 4 more. What? Oh, yeah, you're not immune yet. You told me I could be free again. Yeah, 4 more, right? Oh, right. But people just forget and move on. They're too distracted, too much tech, too much, too many psyops being fed to them. This is the time right now. These weather weapons are going to be used on all of us. We don't know where. We don't have their map in front of us. We can't see their little chessboard, their little risk board game of the places that they want to hit next. We could clearly see that Texas, Florida, these red states have been in the line of fire. The entire Southeast at least. Right? And it's going to continue from there. And we see what they're doing in the tornadoes, or another thing that they're doing. And people don't bring up weather modification with the tornadoes and how they have patents on these things and how easy, I showed videos, of course they're all gone, of course, but they're on the website. But I showed videos where, there's these places where they create tornadoes. There's like indoor play. Oh, okay, here's a big tornado. This is how you make a tornado. Look at the tornado, and things get sucked into it. It's not like a real tornado that's like sucking in cars. But you can see how they do it. And you say, oh, could they actually do this on a mass scale? Oh, they'd never do that. What? They're showing you they can create these things. They have patents on these things. Oh, yeah, they're just doing this for fun? Right, you wake up one day and say, I want to make a tornado. Okay, you make a tornado. You figure out you can make a tornado. What are you going to do with that knowledge? What, are you selling a toy to Parker Brothers? Are they selling a tornado, a toy for the kids in the backyard? Well, obviously not. So why would people have this stuff? Why would your government have these types of patents? What kind of a psychopath comes up with these ideas? Why would your former presidents like JFK talk about controlling the weather? Or Lyndon B. Johnson saying, he who controls the weather controls the world. Well, because that was what their plan was. They figured it out. They've mastered it. They heat up the ionosphere. They manipulate the weather. And they're going to do this to all of us. They're going to keep us divided with psychological ops while they drown us out. They flood us out. And even if you don't get hit, they'll tell you if you live a town over that your home is no longer livable because of the flood, because of mold, whatever they'll say. FEMA will come in, they'll confiscate your home, they'll give you a little bit of cash, they'll move you out, and eventually they'll move us all in. And the next thing you know, you'll be living in smart cities, concentration camps, through technology. That's what the goal of all this stuff is, okay? I'm ranting here. But, for anybody out there that's new and you stumble upon the channel, wake up to what's going on. Because it's really, really easy to see if you just take your blindfolds off. The news is simulation. They're programming you. Anytime you get close to truth, like people are with cloud seeding and geoengineering, they'll come out and they'll put a little story out there and they'll say, oh, some little company worth $100 million. The guy flies the plane up, You know, he's got his little Jesus shirt on. We're supposed to believe he's a Christian on his YouTube channel. He talks about how he can make man-made weather. And they go, but it's not that. You can't make a severe storm. Oh, you can only make a baby storm. Okay, so you can make baby storms. You can make real tiny hurricanes or real tiny, rain events. Oh, but couldn't do it on a mass scale. Well, if you can make a small one, you likely can make a big one, right? It's like, well, you see those mini cupcakes at the store. You think somebody made a mini cupcake and they never strived to make a bigger one? Now we see all types of freakazoid GMO cupcakes. Of course. So you tell me they can make little ones, but that's as far as they can go. Well, what happens when they try to make big ones? Oh, they don't do that. Oh, right. So the psychopaths who come up with the idea to make a hurricane, who come up with the idea to use it in war, like in Vietnam, Operation Popeye. They came up with the idea, and then they said, let's just stop here. We can make it rain, in a little, 100 acres of land, right? And then they go, well, could we make it rain in 1,000 acres of land? No, let's just stop here at 100 acres. That's fine, right? And maybe, some people say, well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Maybe somebody did have an idea in the day, right? And they were like, hey, we can make it rain. Then we don't have to have droughts. And the farmers can grow food all the time. We don't have to worry about getting low on food. Maybe someone's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Because maybe, they didn't live like this, where you call Uber, or you have food at every corner, even though it's not real food. Right? And they're like, okay, well, we figured it out. We could do this up in the sky, and we can make it rain, and then we always have food. Wow. And you don't think, some guy got that idea and said, wait, they can make it rain, and okay, and they could just do it. Well, maybe we could do it across all the farms, right? Instead of 100 acres, can we do like 10,000 acres, so all the farms? Okay. All right, we figured it out. Now we got a plethora of food, and this knowledge gets passed on to someone else who's like, yeah, but you can make it rain, right? Could you make it storm? Well, if we make it storm, yeah, of course. Maybe we could make it storm. Okay, let's try it. But why would we want to make it storm? I don't know. Maybe it'd be fun. Maybe somebody really likes to watch the lightning. Like all the celebrities who love lightning tattoos and dress up with lightning bolts. Okay, make it lightning. Oh, and you don't think from there that somebody was like, hey, could we use this? Because I hate people. I hate humanity. I'm disgusted with you. I mean, we've seen all these psychopaths, right? They tell us they're psychopaths, Hitler, Stalin. You think somebody was like, hey, can we use this on our own people? Well, why would we do that? Well, think about it. If we flood them out of their houses, we can move them into cities. We could just have them all live on an allowance. We'll take their freedoms away. We'll control their voices, what they can and cannot say. We'll have all the money, all the resources. We'll let them live if they survive the floods. We'll let them live like slaves to us, and we'll be kings among peasants. No, nobody would ever think about to live like that or has the mindset like that. No psychopath at all. These are people who watch all these shows, like Game of Thrones or the Hunger Games. Yeah, there's nobody out there like that. No, they're just in front of you on TV every day. Bill Gates, why don't you think he would do it? Oh, well, because Bill Gates says he's going to give all his money away when he dies. Oh, yeah? Yeah, the devil would say the same thing, right? You think the devil would, the people who worship him, you don't think he says, hey, you could have it all, right? What did the devil say to Jesus on the mount? You could have all this, right? You can have all this. Well, he says that to everybody who follows him. You could have it all. But in the end, they're all going to have eternity. They'll have all that for sure in hell with the devil, and that won't be fun, right? These psychopaths have this technology, and they are using it against us, and they show and reveal themselves to us every day. All these guys who come out and they brag about how much they donate and all this other crap, you shouldn't just be suspicious of them. You should just know that they're in on it. They wouldn't let any regular person achieve that type of wealth. These tech guys, Peter Thiel, all the guys involved at Palantir, all the guys involved at Meta, you can look at them and there's no soul in their bodies. In fact, most of us question if they're even human in the first place. Look at the eyes of Zuckerberg. Look at the eyes of Thiel. These guys look human to you? No, they don't. But of course, another one like Thiel has their hand somehow connected to the corporation and involved in the cloud seeding ahead of time. Now, they want to talk about it on the news, but they want you to think that just some corporation has the ability to do that. Yeah, guess what? That corporation is just a branch off of DARPA, just like Peter Thiel and all these big tech companies from Elon Musk and Tesla. They're all connected to DARPA. They're getting you to enslave yourself by buying the government technology that monitors and tracks us and eventually enslaves us. I thank everybody for being here. Sorry for the long rant. I didn't intend for it to go this long, but I needed to get it off my chest. Hope you're all doing well. Prayers for everybody in Texas and all the families affected. And God bless you and your families.